My name is Sahar, and Sahar means pre-dawn in Arabic and in Persian.
Awesome. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your childhood?
Childhood. Whenever I read books or stories about that inner child, I think back to that little girl, that physical little girl that was never a child. It, I was a little girl, yes, in a body of a little girl, but my mind was always trying to act up like an adult so I can satisfy my parents and my community and my culture that was expecting way too much out of me. And that little girl lived during the war, so really there was uh, not much to be a child in that time during the war in Lebanon in the 70s.
Do you remember how that felt as a child?
It was confusing because I'm one of six children. I'm the youngest, and there's like a 9 year gap between me and the brother before me. So I didn't have a chance to have a relationship with my siblings, to play with them or engage with them. By the time I was 5, most of them have left home. Um, and what was the question?
The feelings of that, so just being a child during the war and how that
Yeah,
felt for you.
that so I really didn't have the support of my siblings. My friends, they all have little brothers or sisters they would play with. I didn't have anyone to play with. We couldn't go out most of the time because bombs were just dropping on us, or it wasn't safe. And then add to that, I was born in Lebanon, but my parents are refugees, so I was living there as, still to this day, I'm looked at as a refugee. So I didn't have a chance to go to public school like all the other kids. My parents had to send me and send all my siblings to private schools because refugees are not allowed into public schools back then. I'm not sure how is it now. Um, it was scary, but I've always been a dreamer, and I wanted something big, big, something big, but I wasn't sure what it was. But I wasn't satisfied with anything. I often look at my parents, and I'm sure many people can relate. Look how pathetic they are. What a pathetic life they lead. Not that I didn't appreciate what they were doing, but I didn't feel like I belong in that environment.
What were your dreams as a kid?
I was not sure until recently. I've always wanted something big. I wanted to travel, that's for sure. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to do something exciting. I wanted to um, do things that are not unique, that are not ordinary. I wanted to do something that was unique. No one has done it before. Um, Dreams of I don't know. When you're a child, your dreams are different than when, dreams do change as you get older and different situation in your life, different people in your life. They do influence your dreams on so many levels. I've learned that the hard way. Yeah. Dreams as a child to leave Lebanon.
Could you tell us about your relationship with your dad and how that relationship felt?
My dad, he is 94 years old, living in Southern California right now. Um, does not take any medication. He's he's okay. He can get up and do things on his own. Um, he's amazing, but he had a rough childhood, and I did not understand it until later on in life. My dad is my hero, but no one understood him just like me. No one understood me. All the kids growing up during that time in that place, Lebanon, we kids were disciplined, and usually the father will beat them up or will punish them. And my siblings did get that punishment from Baba, from Dad, but I didn't. You know, I brag about it. I was the baby in the family, and me and my sister and four brothers. So he treated me and my sisters like princesses. You know, we were not punished. We would never, we would get away with things. He will fight with my mom for us because he himself never had sisters. And he lost his mom at the age of 8. So he was longing for that female connection. And he and my mom, they never got along. I mean, the day that she died, 3, 4, 5 years, 4 years ago, the relationship was not healthy for them and for all of us. But ironically, my dad, he's a legend. You know, what he's been through and how strong he always came out. And he had dreams, he had big dreams, but because of his situation and because of the lack of choices that he had, he couldn't make it. So he tried to give us what he didn't have by bringing us here to the United States to get a proper education and be able to be ourselves and move around instead of, you know, people pointing at us refugees.
How's your relationship with him feel?
It feels warm. He's fun to be around, even now at his age. I feel sad sometimes when I look in his eyes of all the trauma he's been through, and he couldn't channel it like I'm doing right now. I'm more conscious about my feeling, and I know how to channel those wounds. Where with him, one, because he was a man, he wasn't expected to have feelings or show emotion or feelings, and he needed to support the family. And he was a refugee. You know, he couldn't get a job. He needed a work permit. Even, you know, after 30 years living in Lebanon, he needed a work permit. It needed to be renewed every once in a while. So he was struggling, and lack of education also, that played a big role, because they left home, he and his family, not knowing when they're going to come back, and they didn't know where they were going. The boat landed somewhere in Lebanon, in the south shore of Lebanon. So all of this, you know, make up who he is, but he can't talk about it, and I see it in his eyes.
What about your relationship with your mom and how that felt?
Mama died in 2017. There's a word in Arabic that does not have a meaning in English. I've been trying to find the meaning or definition for it in English. My mom died not happy with me. And this, in my religion, in my culture, this is a big thing. This could land you in hell if that's how we believe. And she did that because she had so much hope for me. She and one of my siblings, one of my brothers, were the reason why I'm here. They married me off at the age of 16. They kind of did the whole plot, the two of them, and then they told my dad at the last minute. And of course they asked me, and what do I know when I'm 16 years old? Excuse me. So in her mind, and at first I was angry at her, but now as a parent myself, I realized that she was doing the best she could for her child, for her little girl. She wanted security, she wanted a good provider, and they found one, and he's in the United States. He could look after Sahar. Sahar doesn't have to work or go to school or anything. She can be a housewife, well looked after. And sure, that was a deal. That was the deal, that I get married, I go to the United States, not to mention school. My mom did say that to me, do not mention school, at the beginning. Wait until you get to know him and see if he's okay with it, and then you mention school. So, and she said a lot of things among, preparing me to that marriage, like don't come back, don't ever come back to your parents' house divorced. You come back with your husband and children. That word is stuck with me to this day. Like, I have no home. And I never thought of divorce back then, but no one knows what the future. And I did find myself without a home, and my own family, my parents' house was not welcoming. So that created friction between me and her. And then she moved to the United States, and the comparison continued. From childhood, I was always compared to the other girls in the neighborhood, because we lived in a well-off, kind of like, not a well-off, middle-class neighborhood where all the kids go to private school. So I was like always compared with the other children. And because I hated French and everyone spoke French back then, I was like, I think part of my mom pressuring me to speak the French language made me hate it. That part from childhood, and then I came here to the United States, and then she started comparing me to people in the family, privileged people. I don't know how to say this for lack of better words.
How did it feel for you when you were being compared to other people? How was that for you in those moments?
Awful, because I knew myself. I knew I was doing my best, and all I wanted was just like a little pat on the back. Good job. You did your best. Not if not, and then we come here to this Western world where, parenthood is totally different than what we grew up with. And I look at it and it's like, why can't they do this to me? Why can't they just say, well, good job, honey, better off next time, instead of, making a big deal out of it, and you screwed everyone and the whole family is damaged because of you and your action and all these, Arab dramas. So my relationship with her, she taught me a lot. She was resilient in her own way, but also she expected too much, and she put too much pressure on us, not for our own benefits, but it was for the benefit of her, and I'm saying this on camera, for her, one of her children, my brother, who's a well-known religious figure. So everything she did was to protect him and to protect his image.
So how did you fit into that?
I played the role. I played the role pretty well at the beginning.
How does it feel to get out of that role now and to step into your own?
Bittersweet. That's the word, bittersweet. It was painful. For a while, I couldn't believe myself that I'm out of this, I call it a cult. It does feel like a cult. And I'm looking at things from an outside perspective, and then I realized, when I got divorced, that I have no place to go to, but I have one thing that I gained by being here in the United States. Well, not one thing, two things. My American passport and my education. Although my education is not that elaborate, it was just a GED and a few college degrees, a few college courses here and there, and a work experience at a well-known, company in Northern California. So I escaped. I literally took my passport and booked a flight to Morocco. I've never been there. I don't know anyone there. All by myself. I wasn't allowed to travel by myself before. And now I look, 10 years later, traveling and doing things that I wouldn't even dreaming of. My dreams were restricted, were censored to this point that they had so much control on me. It feels painful. At the same time, I feel such a relief that I'm not in that circle anymore.
Do you see the pain in where you're at now? Do you see it as beautiful altogether?
Sometimes I have awful days. I do suffer from mental illness. Sometimes I see it beautiful. Sometimes I see it as a blessing. I needed to feel that pain so I can change. Because if I had stayed in that relationship or in that, bubble, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
What's the biggest thing you learned from both your parents?
To keep going, especially for my dad, to keep going. No point of stopping. And that's what I do. I get up every day and I keep going, keep doing things. Because I learned doing things that it keeps my mind busy, but also if I did a little thing today, maybe it's not gonna get me to where I am, but maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, maybe next week, maybe next year, or maybe someone will see that little thing, or read that little poem that I wrote or that photo that I shared, that they could get inspired or connect somehow with me and realize that we all have so many potentials that others put a limit on.
Could you tell us about your first love? Whatever you associate as your first love. It can be a person, thing, event, hobby, anything, and just how that first love felt for you.
Of course, my first marriage was not based on love because my mother said, "Oh, you will love him later. Love will come later." And in that part of the world, and back then, it was just normal. Love stories belong in books and movies.
Did you ever think that maybe that it would come later, but it just never came?
In my mind back then, I thought that it did came.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, okay, this is love. I have the perfect family, a good provider. My children are healthy. We had so-called the American dream, the house, the car, the business, all of that. And yeah, why don't you feel, in love? He was a nice person to me in his own way. But I did not know what love is or to give love because I didn't receive it. You can't give from an empty well. You have to fill yourself with love before you can give it or experience it. And then I went to Morocco the first time. I met a guy. I looked at his eyes and I said to myself, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen any eyes like that before." And I brushed it off as just like whatever. Well, 10 years later, we're married. Yes. It started as just, introduce me to your country, take me shopping, tell me how do you do this, what do you eat this, where do I get this, and then I went back to the U.S. The divorce wasn't final back then, so I went back to the U.S. thinking, oh well, I had a good, refreshing energy, from Morocco. I can go back, and life was difficult, and I kept thinking of him, and I've only met him for a few days, and I didn't realize it was love. Even to this day, I question: is it love? Because we don't have a lot in common. We really don't have much in common. But we support each other in any way we can. But back to your question, my first love, I think, is when I looked at my first child at the age of 17. My baby girl, and she was a big girl for this tiny lady. I didn't think my heart could have these kind of feelings. It was awkward. It was beautifully awkward. Like, this is mine. This is part of me. I created this.
Could you describe, or at least try, how that felt?
It felt like I accomplished what they wanted me to accomplish. I've given them a child within less than a year. But also it felt warm. It felt like perfect. This is what life is all about. You know, how incredible. And then you think about it, and I remember, you know, I was really skinny back then, holding her in my arm and looking, you know, at her is like, gosh, I wonder if my parents felt the same way about me. And then you start looking back at all your ancestors and all the creatures that give birth. It's like, do they experience the same thing? Do cats experience the same thing? And of course, now I haven't talked or seen my daughter for 10 years.
Do you want to talk more about that? You don't have to.
A lot had happened before the divorce of my first marriage, and a lot of events led to the divorce. And she played a role in those events. And like my parents, I was doing my best. What do I know? I'm an immigrant child from a refugee family that came to the United States that were expected to integrate, but there were barriers. I lived with a person and my family. And can I get a tissue? Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you. What do I know? I was doing my best, and I was putting the weight of my refugee family and my immigration to the United States. All of that was weighing so heavily on a child who was perfect in so many ways. You know, an A student, popular in school, pretty. All the things that will, every child or every kid in high school would want to be. And there she has these dysfunctional parents at home that were trying to provide a perfect life for her, but in her Western mind were trying to restrict her. And the environment where we are doesn't support people like us. We were trying to raise her the way we were raised, but we were told things don't work out that way in this country, that you need to integrate. I had to sit through therapy with my child so they can teach me how to integrate into this society, to be part of this society, to leave my culture, leave my tradition and everything that I've learned about who I am, and become someone else. And I wasn't ready to do that, and I didn't want my child to go through that. But my child was ready. She was like, I have nothing to do with what they're talking about. Yes, I speak Arabic, but that's all I know. And I eat Arabic food, but that's all I know. So when the divorce happened, she blamed me, and rightfully so. I walked away, and this is something not normal in my culture. So she blamed me, and then of course I go and have a relationship with someone else in another country. No child would be okay with that. This is their mom, and he's just a stranger. So she stopped talking to me. As a matter of fact, all of them, all of my family, they stopped talking to me for a period of 3 years. And I wasn't allowed to see my other children who were under the age, under 18. And I had visitation rights, but I had no money for a lawyer. I was living abroad. Their dad was here. He had access to lawyers, and he had access to my medical record, which he threatened to bring up if I tried to see the children, that I'm not a fit mother. I had psychological issues in the past that will be, that will be harming the children. So for a period of 3 or 4 years, I did not see any of my children. Rarely did I hear from them, but not from my daughter.
What's your first loss or heartbreak?
First loss or heartbreak. The divorce. At first, I thought it was a loss. I've lost everything. I've lost security. I've lost my home. I've lost my children. That was a heartbreak. And it took me a while to realize that some things we label as loss could come back to be a gain, to make us strong. I'm lucky in the sense that I don't have any family members, like I've lost family members to cancer or to illness or any of that. So that's a blessing. I always, feel grateful that I don't have to feel those feelings that others feel when they lose a loved one. Because when you say loss, we immediately think of, losing a person. But yeah, that broke me, that, divorce. All of a sudden I found myself all on my own in a foreign country. And I needed to be strong for myself. I didn't have anyone, I didn't have to support anyone. I didn't have to look after anyone. I just needed to look after me, after myself. The loss of my cat. I've lost one cat. Yeah, I think it's the marriage. When walking away from the marriage, I thought that was the biggest loss of my life. I've lost everything.
How do you define love? How's love in contrast to what you used to think, or what love was to you as a child versus to where you're at now?
Love, a lot of people think that, falling in love is the most beautiful thing in the world. I say feeling loved is way much sweeter and satisfying. Love is nurturing each other. If you're talking about partner, you're talking about partnership, with your partner, love, nurturing each other, lifting each other up, be there for each other. And sometimes love is sitting on the sideline and watching the other person grow or find themselves. That helped me a lot, having a partner who supported me, encouraged me, but also stepped aside and let me be myself, because I couldn't love him if I didn't love myself. I needed to find myself before I could offer love. Love for the family, this is, when you're a child, you are expected to love your mother, your father, your religion, all of that, And yes, we all love our family, but we all have moments where we hate them. We can't stand them. But still, there's something on the inside that keeps us connected. Love is beautiful, and I didn't realize it could be this sweet. And it is a lot sweeter when you are loving yourself, being okay with who you are, accepting who you are, because then you attract a person that will value these emotions.
How does feeling loved feel?
It feels um, I used to think love is security. Loving someone is like having security, but I've learned that I don't need security. I'm good on my own. I just needed a heart that would listen, a heart that would give me a hug, a heart that is there for me. When on the floor crying and beating myself up for all the things that went wrong in my life and the family trauma and all of that. And love is that person sitting there and hugging you, not saying a word, just hugging you.
What's a good day look like for you?
A good day is that's a tough question. I don't have a lot of good days. I'm learning to build up my good days. A good day looks like me hanging around home, writing, reading, cooking. I like being in the kitchen, having my family over, like the reason why I moved back to the United States, to be closer to my children. They live in California. So I decided to be close to them, but not that close. So Colorado was perfect for that. They can fly, a couple of hours flight. Yeah, a good day when they were here over Thanksgiving. My son, his wife, my grandson, and my twin boys. I'm in the kitchen cooking. One of my twins is doing the puzzle, the other one's playing with the cat. My grandson is running around, and my daughter-in-law is just sitting, going through all my purple stuff. My favorite color is purple, so I have a lot of purple stuff around the house. That's the perfect day.
What about a bad day? What's a bad day look like for you, and what are the things you do to just manage that, I guess?
Bad days are, they happen more often than good days in my life. I don't know why. Bad days when, I hate to say this, but bad days when things don't go my way. Bad days when I have something inside, I wanted to share it, but I'm afraid to share it. Like I said, I belong to a community, a religious community that often put me under the microscope. They're like watching me, even though they're not in my life, but they're always watching me. And I will receive messages via people, whatever, that they're not happy with what I'm doing. And then I get so angry on the inside, but I don't show that anger. And then it builds up 2, 3, 4 days. And then, I started being cranky and not knowing what to do. And I start having pain because I have like physical pain, chronic pain. And I get agitated and angry. And I'm learning that to journal, write everything, and also talk to my partner, because I can't assume, or I just can't assume that he's going to know what's going on inside my head. So talking to someone, I have no one but my partner to talk to, because I kind of, like the medical professional, they failed me. When my medical record was threatened to be in court to deny me seeing my children, and I had several issues with medical professionals in the past, that I don't seek that anymore. And being away from the United States also taught me to rely on myself, and to bring myself up on those bad days and keep doing little things, even if it's journaling, even if it's writing a silly poem, or just hanging around in my apartment with my cat, just do little things. Like I said at the beginning, those little things, they do add up, and we don't take them, we take them for granted, but they do add up in the long run.
What's a person or an event that's really shaped you, good or bad?
Bad, in a bad way.
You pick a good or bad way.
Okay. My experience of living on my own in Morocco shaped me in a very good way, in a very positive way. Because, like I said, I'm a female that I haven't traveled on my own before. I wasn't allowed to travel on my own. I've never done things on my own. Things were done for me. I had people that provided for me. So I found myself a stranger in a foreign country. So I had to rely on myself and bring myself up. That whole experience just rebirthed a whole new me. The struggle I faced there, the things I did that I didn't do in my early 20s, I ended up doing them in my 40s, and then realizing, that's not what I want to be, that's not what I want to experience. But I had to do them because I didn't do them when I was young. So that shaped me, changed my entire being, who I am.
How did that feel, like, pretty much your first time getting to live on your own and seeing that you could make it on your own?
It was difficult, and because I didn't have my family support, it was even more, it was harder. It felt hard, but whenever I accomplished something, little things, I felt proud of myself. And I didn't have anyone to tell me, oh, good job, well done. I was telling myself that, I would write in my journal like, whoa, way to go, you did it. Who would have thought a year ago you were, you didn't have that job, now you have that job. A year ago you couldn't even get out of bed, now look at you, you're, traveling through Europe. So that, yeah. I forgot what was the question.
Just the answer, that's good. You talked a lot about your family and how just because of the rules of religion, they decided to take a certain course of action because that's just what the rules are, maybe, right? How did that feel for you? Because it could feel like, almost abandonment in its own way, right?
Yes, I feel like an outsider now, to the whole family. They're cautious when they're around me, like, oh, she's not like us anymore. She's an outsider. But for me, it feels, phew, I'm so glad I'm not like you anymore. I'm so glad I can see things clearly, and I feel bad for, like, my children and some family members that are stuck in that cycle. And for a while I was trying so hard to make them see how bad this circle is, but I realized you can't make anyone see anything if they don't want to see it. They need to see it on their own. So I stepped back and I said, you know what, I have my own shit to deal with.
Yeah.
I need to be strong in case they come out of this circle and they need the support that I didn't have back then. They can find me and I'll be there for them.
What's inspired you?
What inspired me? My husband is from a tiny village outside of Marrakesh in Morocco. And in his village, I got to experience some of the things that I've never thought I would ever experience or be in such an environment. He has one of his aunt. I don't think she's that old, but because of the harsh life that she leads. Um, she has this wrinkly bronze skin, but she's always happy. They have they have things and they don't have things. Life is tough, but she's always happy. She's always cheerful. She's always happy to see me. And I look at her and I sit in her tiny makeshift kitchen and I eat her food. I'm like, how can this person have this smile on her face? And I have all of this and I'm still complaining. So we take for granted a lot of little things that we have. I think I'm not sure, but I think Dada Aisha is my greatest inspiration.
How do you remind yourself of those small things that really are the foundation of lasting joy, I guess?
It's hard for all of us, and especially for me. We get caught up with life and, wanting things and upgrading, things in our lives, whether, the phone, the apartment, the car, all of this. We want more, 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 more. And then when I was in that village, I realized that all of this doesn't matter. So how do I find joy, with finding these little things? Journal had helped me, and feeling gratitude, feeling grateful for the things that I have and the things that I don't have, because I'm so grateful I don't have that life that I had before. This is a blessing. Grounding yourself every once in a while. Remind yourself, just sit around and look around you. It's like, gosh, I have a lot. I have everything. And I'm not talking about physical things. I'm talking about the things that makes me who I am. I have a person that loves me. I'm in love with myself. That's important. I mean, I like who I am right now. I love what I do. I love where my life is taking me. I couldn't envision that 10 years ago, and I couldn't even count that as a blessing 10 years or 12 years ago.
What's been a humbling experience for you?
A humbling experience. Living in Morocco and not having access to the little luxurious things you have in the U.S. Like I had a washer, but there was no dryer. So I know this is ridiculous, but these little things, you come back and you put your clothes in the dryer and they come out warm. Like, oh, what a feeling, And then you realize that how life, you don't need to have a washer and dryer to feel content in your life. Most humbling moment. Most humbling moment is when my son, my oldest son, sit down and talks to me as if he's the parent and I'm the child. I've done things that I'm not proud of, and they don't fit in the narrative of the religion or the culture. And he would sit down with me and talk to me, and I would listen. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm supposed to be doing that talking, but I listen and I take it in and I respect him, and I see that he cares. That's why he's talking to me. So I think that moment is humbling to me.
Yeah, I agree. I just saw myself there. I mean, I have a mom. I would never sit down and read mom, but to picture that, because your son didn't have the life that you have, he hasn't seen or felt half the things you've seen or felt, and to really be the bigger person, because really you love your son, and you'd rather just look at the intention of his heart than to let the words put you in a place that you're not supposed to be in, so that's beautiful. The next question, if you could go in your mind and think the this life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Could you tell us about a time that you relate to the word war?
I am a child of war. I was born in the 70s during the civil war in Lebanon. I've seen things, I smelled things. You know, I write in my poetry about the smell of war, you know, not just the sound of war. War have that distinctive smell to it. I can't even describe it. It's ugly, and it destroyed a lot of us, not just me. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people from Lebanon. I'm positive if you talk to anyone in Lebanon during that time, they will say the same thing, because it was tough. It was difficult. I remember a time when I think I was 7 or 8. They were bombing, so we would go down into the underground basement, I guess, of a building. Each building had, all buildings had basements. So we would go under the ground, and with all the neighbors. And that time, it happened during the night. So you just leave your house in your pajama and your underwear, whatever, and you go down to the basement. So you get to see your neighbors in their most unflattering way. And that time we were there for a period of 3 days before we could go out to see the outside world, or to see the sky or the sun.
How old were you?
I think I was 8, because it's underground, the windows are like on top. There's like these windows that see to the streets where people walk. And the building itself, it's a huge building, and I guess, I don't know what they call it, but they have like an opening in the building, like a chute, where they think, not the elevator, but something, that opening that will lead down to the basement, like maybe for garbage, the chute or something, I'm not sure what it was. And a bomb had dropped there in that space, and the smoke came out to the basement. And I remember my dad, very, very well, holding me up to the window, trying to push my nose out so I can breathe the fresh air instead of breathing the toxic, the smoke of the air. And that moment, I was like, he's not worried about himself, he was worried about me. That image is with me all the time. Like, and not just that moment, many, many moments after that, where he put himself in danger to protect me and protect my brothers too. Oh, if you want me to talk about war, I can go on and on.
How do you process that now as an adult? So how do you process the trauma of war? And I know growing up, when you see, violence and stuff like that, it's hard to feel the peace inside. So how are you at peace, having witnessed all that war and been in it, and then the turmoil in just your life, and then now?
At first, growing up, we would comfort each other by saying, "Oh, we've all went through it, so it's a collective thing. You're not the only one." So, and Lebanese people are resilient. They will, the war will be happening, and people will be like sitting on their balcony, smoking their shisha, or having their coffee. And when it goes on for a long time, you get used to it. But later on in life, especially when I came to the United States, I realized that it has affected me big time. Like my relationship with my colleagues, with the people that I meet, I'm always cautious, and I'm always afraid to approach people, because I don't know what's going to happen, what's the result. Loud noises to this day, scares me. Where we live nearby, there's an airfield, and whenever those airplanes are roaming the sky, I just can't, I get flashbacks from all the sounds that I used to hear. Talking about it, I don't talk about it. What I did and what I'm doing, and it's helpful, is I write about it. So I write poetry, and they're all related to that part of me during the war. And recently, I was in a workshop, just recently, a few days ago. People sometimes don't want to hear that. They want to hear like about butterfly, blue sky, and all of that. It's like, I can't. This is not me. I'm gonna write about the smell of war. The day my cousin was shot in the car, and my dad was washing the car, and the blood was running down the street. Yeah, those are moments that I lived through, and I was criticized by someone who said, "Oh, we all have a choice. You could choose to write about beautiful things." I'm like, I don't think so. But I write about it. That's how I channel this war pain.
So the same type of question, but this time instead of war, peace. How do you relate to the word peace?
I used to think peace is just when they stop the bombing and we'll go back to school. But later on, I realized that inner peace is the most valuable peace anyone can have. And if we all have that inside of us, imagine what a peaceful world we can live in. Peace is hard to achieve for someone like me because everything is against me, all the elements, everything, if you look at it, the society, the culture, I'm a woman, I'm brown, I look different, I have a weird name. All of this adds up to me not feeling at peace, wherever I go. But I try to create peace in my home. It doesn't matter if I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment or when I lived in Morocco, I lived in a lavish, Moroccan house. I try to make my house as my sanctuary where I'm in peace. And I'm learning, slowly and gradually learning, that anyone that will enter this house and disturb my peace, no longer welcome. Because I've learned inner peace is valuable and I need it to keep going. And I do that by meditating, by writing. If I can go to nature, I can get to nature. I like the sea, the water. And ironically, I moved to Colorado. There's no ocean, but there are a lot of lakes. So I like to sit by the lake and just let it all out.
What's the hardest thing you've been through?
All of this that I've just said.
The most difficult time in your life?
The most difficult thing that I'm going through right now is not hugging my daughter, smelling her, that first smell that I remember when the nurse handed her to me. I've tried apologizing, tried reaching out. Many family members tried. That's the hardest thing. That's what's eating me up and keeping me up at night. And people around me, kind of, all of them, even my brothers, her brothers, my sons, are like tired of hearing about it. It's like, let it go, Mom. She's just not ready. As if just like I can brush that off and that's it.
Do you have hope that it will happen?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that hope? So how do you hope for something that hurts you so much? How do you deal with that?
It hurts so much, but I'm at fault. I wasn't a great parent.
I hope that one day she'll realize that we're not perfect and I was doing my best. I keep creating vision in my head, the day where we would meet and how sweet and beautiful it's going to be, and I live off that.
Could you tell us about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt?
Joyous moment. When I'm near the Mediterranean, I don't know why I have that thing for the Mediterranean, but whenever I'm there, I have this enormous feeling of, oh, I'm home. I don't know why. I'm a Cancer, so maybe that, that explains it. But I feel joy whenever I'm, near the beach. I can, by myself, in Morocco, I used to travel to this city where I would go and wake up in the morning and walk on the beach and just peace, just me, the ocean, the sun, the sand, that's it, and the birds. This is my joyful moment. I know I could say the birth of my twins or my daughter, but lately these are little joyful moments that I cherish and I plan to do more of.
What keeps you up at night?
Oh gosh, I overthink everything. Everything. From like, oh, why my cat is not eating the orange, little things, his food? Why is my student, didn't show up today? Why is she sad? She looks sad. Maybe I should ask her. Maybe I shouldn't ask her. Why should I, interfere? I'm just a teacher. All these things. I worry about my financial situation because we all do. That's part of life, and because when you are a female like me and you don't have the proper education or the education that they ask for, what's going to happen? And, I'm 50 now. What's going to happen when I'm 65 or older? Where I'm going to be? Things like that, and I overthink everything, and yeah, not healthy, man. Not healthy at all. The overthinking part.
What keeps you going every day?
At first, many years ago, it was my children. Like I had to be there. I have to wake up in the morning and be there for my children, even if I felt crappy or all of that. But right now, what's keeping me going is I am writing my story. I started writing it as a memoir, but as you can see, it's very painful to bring back all these memories and the trauma. So I've switched it to like a fictional type of memoir, novel. I'm calling it a novel because I can play around with the characters. I have some secrets that my family don't know about. So I thought, what a great way to just introduce them in the book. And since it's a fiction, I can just, well, I don't know if it's true or not, but these things could happen. And if they do happen, know what you should do. And please don't keep secrets because they're just so painful. Secrets are so painful.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
It would be the secret, not revealing the secrets to my family and the people that are close to me, because I'm hurting myself by keeping this inside me, and I'm also hurting them because they have the right to know. And the reason we keep secrets is because of the pressure we are put on by society, by culture, by tradition. Like you do things and you're ashamed, that you did them, so you kind of don't talk about it. But if we are all living authentically and not having to worry about these things that are labeled shameful, maybe we don't keep secrets, maybe we will live a better life. Maybe I'll have a better relationship with my children. But really, I would regret nothing. If I'm on my deathbed right now, I regret not seeing my daughter for the last 10 years. But this is something that is not in my hands. I can't do anything about it. But other than that, even all the mistakes I did, all the stupid things that I did, no regret. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do them again, but I have no regret.
On the top of that, as far as the secrets, do you feel that within that regret or that thought that moving forward you can be at peace or make amends with that?
Secrets are tough to handle. You can blurb them out, and people, your family or whoever is around you might, just accept them. Oh, okay, they happened a long time ago, no big deal. Or they can create something that could cause trauma for generations to come, because my secrets are based on what my family and my culture and my religion don't want me to do. So if we remove all these restrictions, maybe secrets are not that bad. Maybe they're just, oh, okay. When I was in 5th grade, I stole my friend's, eraser. That's not a big deal. But back then, when I was 5, it was a big deal. So I would not regret, but if I could, I would encourage myself and others to be more open with yourself and with the people around you. And if they can't accept that open person, that open mindset, maybe you're in the wrong environment.
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
To publish my book.
You're the co-author of your life story. What's your scenic picture perfect ending? It's not the end. It's just how you would see the book ending or your movie ending. What does that look like for you?
Having that inner peace, that, sitting and looking around like, I did it, and I did it, and anyone could, because I'm not a genius, and I did it. So in my book, I'm writing about the struggle of females in the Middle East and in North Africa and in that part of the world where we women are still not allowed to do things like women here in the West. So my perfect vision of the book is when others read it and feel inspired and realize that, dang, look at all what she did, and she did it. I can do it too. It's not impossible. That's the aim of my book.